Okay, looking at a different hole on this plot now, and we're going to look at a slightly secondary part of Sightlines. So here we've made sure that everything is visible, and what we're going to talk about is making the player really only see what you absolutely want them to do. So for me, if I possibly can, I'll try to give them a view to the green and really to all pins. So I think I might draw a line there, and I know that anything that I plant basically in that line is going to obscure the view to the pin. So I don't want any trees really within that window. However, you also want to think about the view that you are encouraging the player to see. You only really want them to see the things that are absolutely like, so give a big field of vision, but those are the bits that we want them to focus on. We don't really want them seeing all of this empty space out here because that highlights the emptiness we've got on the course. So that can kind of give you an idea of where you're going to plant. And if your planting has a bit more direction, then you'll find generally it's better. Now, there's also going to be some empty space that we need to fill. So if I'm looking over here, well, this bit, thankfully, empty space in water is really easy because it fits the eye quite nicely. But we're going to want some waterside planting. Now, I could get around this by being really lazy, and we could just drop the water all the way in here. But to me, that looks a bit too expansive. It's just like, here's a giant ocean. So I quite like and you can get some contrast. So the other thing I would tend to do is try to diagonally draw the player's eye into the landing zone. So if I'm thinking, I want your focus being on here, and I want you really looking at this spot and going, on the tee, wow, that's going to be a really narrow carry. I've really got to make that because everything we're doing is drawing your eye towards this. So how do you do that? And there's a little bit of art theory coming in here. Basically, you want to make the land and all your trees, etc., kind of point this way. So that means, can we have some planting coming in this way that's going to lead our eye that way? And can we have some planting this way that's going to lead our eye this way? So how do you do that? Well, let's start with tree lines. Now, none of this will probably stay because I haven't really decided how we're going to plant this course, but it's good for illustrating. Let's say we were going with some cypress trees. Maybe we are, maybe we aren't. Now, every time come back and look to here, but I might put one down here. Now we're talking about kind of drawing the eye. So let's try to go high to low. So imagine we put another one there. Come back here, make it, I mean, it's going to look a little bit bigger anyway by being closer to us. And let's put a few there. Now, what else can we add? I'm kind of looking at the tops of the tree lines as well. Let's say we wanted one of these oaks. I don't think we really do. But if we were to make that something like this, let's pop another one up here. You don't want you still want to break up that diagonal a little bit. You don't want it looks really kind of awkward if it's like a perfect diagonal line. I'm talking about here by the diagonal line, I mean like this being low point and up here being high point, which is going to kind of draw your eye in this way. But if it generally sinks down, you'll notice that this does draw the player's eye quite nicely towards that landing zone, even if it's not perfect. We'll pop in another couple of trees. And at this stage, what I'm not looking at so much is kind of what's happening behind and shadows. I know I've got quite a lot of space to play with there, but what I'm really focused on is that top of the tree line and how that looks. You might want to also look at colours, like does anything leap out at you? If I were planting this for real, I'd probably be looking at those cypresses and thinking they're a little bit bright for what I want. Whereas the pines, they all match up quite nicely. And let's finish with one more just on the end there. Now what that's also doing, and if you look back here at the view from the tee, that is kind of guiding our eye down a little bit. It will look better once we've filled out behind it. And that kind of brings me on to our next point. We're looking at really just getting rid of that empty space we don't want the golfer to see. So once more, we're going to try to really block that out. So I'm going to say this tree I love in tropical or this sort of course, because it works really nicely for undergrowth, which is just going to kind of close the feel of the course in a bit more. And you can make it relatively big, but the idea is just overlap the branches and things, make it so that it's, and the other added benefit with this one as well is it's going to brown out the ground for us a little bit as well. You'll notice there's parts of it won't, because I've put heavy rough texture down deliberately there. But as you can see, all we're doing is we're going down, is just rotating. And I know this specifically isn't really sightline related if you're thinking about what you're seeing off the tee, because no one's really looking at this planting particularly. But it's important to cover up what you want the player to not be looking at. And let's just say, for the sake of argument, we had some denser trees in behind, just because that will really hide everything that's going on behind. And I think you'll be surprised when we look back from the tee just how much of a difference blocking out this empty space has made in terms of where it draws your eye to. Let's go to a slightly different colour there, maybe. And we could even have like let's say we have a small tree on the end, just a little bit further on. Put something like that on its own. So now we go back here and we'll suddenly, even just with that bit of planting, because we can't see behind here, well, our attention is now far more drawn to this spot here where I really want you looking at. And we're going to repeat that same thing. So I'm going to plant a little bit here, so we're going to block off this entire side of the image, and I'm going to bring that planting in from the left-hand side as well, and just bring it in here. So I'm going to pause the video and then come back to that in a minute, and you'll see the difference. Okay, same view, not much later, but what you can see we've done is just walled off this side. Now, and a little bit over here. What I am careful of, or going to be checking, is that this tree here just allows me enough view over to where the green is, because I would like to see just the green peeking out around the edge of this. And we'll check that from the player's view. The one final thing that I think I can do a bit better with is this sculpting. You can see there's this mound that's kind of rising up. I really want the player to be feeling the whole way that the land is dropping down into the water. So we're going to sculpt this just so it's dropping down a little bit more diagonally, and again give you that feeling that everything is going to take you left. Pausing again, we'll come back to in a sec. And back we come to the tee. And if we go to play hole, you'll see roughly what we've got. Now we've blocked out all of that space on this side. Remember, we had that massive empty space behind here. That's all gone, and you can now see only the shot that's in front of you. This bit of planting here, if we zoom out a little bit, you can see how it's extending and down this way, and so is the planting here. So it's kind of pushing your eye this way. We can do it with tee boxes as well. If I were putting tee boxes, I wouldn't be putting them on this side because that's kind of hiding the water. Put them on this side, then that's still keeping that big view of the water open. That means when you zoom out to this tee shot and zoom back, you're thinking, well, I've really got to hit over here, but that's making it feel really uncomfortable. And you'll see the water and feel it a little bit more. Whereas when it was all very open, we weren't focused on anything. You'll also see that we can see the green just behind here has worked out very nicely. And the final thing I did, other than, and this is all a very rough job, there's a bit of emptiness here, so I've just planted a few trees and some bushes, not much, but just enough to fill that space from the tee, so that when we look at this shot, we're really focused on the shot that we are trying to hit. Now the same will go when we're framing that approach to the green. You've got to make it, the golfer, really focus on what you want them to see. Block out negative space, just emptiness where you can, and try using every single method at your disposal to kind of force them and focus them on the point that you want them to look at. So that's kind of part 2 on Sightlines. First one is really sculpting and just getting those basics right. And the second one is really, I guess, focusing the player's eye on what you want them to see. Good luck. And if there are any future tutorials that you would like to see or things that you'd like me to cover, very happy to do so. Please just post in the comments with what you'd like to see. Till next time.